Hi, welcome to my channel. It's called Emma Roma. I'm Emma and let's get into it. So the other day I was on TikTok and I was scrolling and I saw that storing your perfume in the fridge was trending. My first thought was that this was heinous. The videos claimed that this would help prevent oxidation of your perfume and therefore help it last longer. I've come across a million different articles, websites, videos, etc. explaining how to properly store your perfume. In fact, some people store it in a way that helps the perfume macerate. So I'm hearing a lot of sciencey words, oxidation, maceration, but what does any of it mean? As someone who's currently studying biological engineering and who used to study biochemistry, I want to know more. So I went down this huge internet rabbit hole looking up everything I could about maceration, oxidation, maturation, expiration, all of it. Most of what you'll find upon an initial search is blogs, websites from brands, just general articles about the topic. And this is perfectly acceptable for just like a baseline level of information. But first of all, these sources rarely cite any kind of reference. Sometimes they will quote an industry expert, that's fine, but usually that person is making very broad statements. 2, the scientific evidence is lacking a bit. I understand that they have a wide audience, so they need to make things very clear and very concise, but I need to know more. And if you clicked on this video, I think you do too. We consume so much information every day, so let's take some time to check it, really evaluate it, and understand it. You get me? All right, let's first start with the scary term oxidation. Do you know which path leads to oxidation? You're right, the one on the left. Oxidation is a chemical reaction. Now don't get scared just yet. Sometimes people hear the word chemical reaction and they think that the perfume is going to turn toxic or corrosive or something like that. Sure, that is something that can happen in some reactions, but not perfume, which is marketed towards like everybody. So broadly, oxidation is a reaction that occurs when electrons are lost. That could look like a million different outcomes. I don't know if you've taken any kind of chemistry class, but we always learned like LEOGR, lose electrons oxidation, gain electrons reduction. I don't know, that was something that I had. So when we talk about perfume oxidation, we're referring to the molecules in your perfume reacting with oxygen. And to save both time and sanity, I'm not going to go over every possible oxidation reaction that could occur. Just know, molecule plus oxygen, chemical reaction equals new molecule. Or molecules. So what's going to happen if your fragrance oxidizes? Well, there's a few possibilities. Number 1, scent change. Scent change can happen. Oxidation can alter how your perfume smells. Again, don't get scared just yet. Usually the scent just becomes less strong or potent, which isn't ideal. I would just tell you to spray more perfume on yourself, and when you run out, just get a smaller bottle. But it's your perfume, you are free to use your own judgment. In terms of scent change, yes, your fragrance could smell less pleasant or even bad. A lot of the time people will say that an expired perfume will smell somewhat musty or even rancid. If this has happened to your fragrance, get rid of it. I would say this marks the point of expiration. Number 2, irritants. Sometimes oxidation can create irritating ingredients. Let's say you've had a fragrance for years, no issues, and then you spray it on yourself and you have like a skin reaction. That might be because one of the compounds in your fragrance has oxidized into something that you're sensitive to. Again, get rid of it. So many people will ask, how do I know if my perfume is expired? I've had it for years, I've had no issues with it, it still smells fine, does this mean I have to throw it away now? No, you're fine. Your perfume isn't your on-again, off-again, tall skinny white boy who vapes and never checks bags situationship. You'll know when to get rid of it. Okay, number 3, color change. Oxidation can sometimes cause your fragrance to change colors. Generally, it will get darker. Products of organic material oxidation generally have a yellow or brownish tint. But hey, don't fret just yet. Just because your fragrance has darkened doesn't mean it's expired. Some people intentionally let their fragrance get darker. And I'll talk about that in a bit when we discuss maceration and maturation.
Maturation.
It's also worth noting that not all fragrance molecules have the same susceptibility to oxidation. Top notes are considered the most susceptible, while base notes are considered the least. I spent so many hours trying to figure out why that was, but the answer was quite simple. It's generally because top notes have less mass, making them more volatile. That's why they're top notes. They evaporate the soonest. So they're going to be exposed to the most oxygen, more chances for oxidation. Plus, lighter molecules will move around faster and therefore have more collisions with oxygen. And again, then you have more chances for an oxidation reaction. A lot of brands will actually add an antioxidant to their fragrance. This is usually butylated hydroxytoluene, or BHT. It doesn't smell like anything, but it does help reduce oxidation. The most important thing to remember is that oxidation is inevitable. There are steps, however, that you can take to help reduce the rate at which this occurs. The conventional method of storing perfume is in a cool, dark, and dry area, like outer space. This is said to increase the perfume's longevity by reducing oxidation. That's because oxidation, no matter what the fragrance note, increases with exposure to UV light, heat, and humidity. Starting with UV light and heat. Sunlight is UV light. It has higher energy, shorter wavelengths compared to that of, say, an LED light. This higher energy wavelength is why sunlight, as opposed to like a lamp, more readily breaks the oxygen-oxygen bonds in O2. When this happens, you get a singular oxygen atom, which is more reactive. When two oxygens form an O2, they covalently bond and share electrons to fulfill the octet rule. In basic chemistry terms, the octet rule says that main group elements will tend to bond with each other in a way that fills their outer shell or valence shell to 8 electrons. It's more stable this way, and they actually have the same valence shell configuration as a noble gas, which are very unreactive. Okay, so now you know O2 slightly less reactive than just singular oxygen under standard conditions. So if your perfume is in sunlight, it may be that the sunlight is actually breaking those O2 bonds and you're left with singular oxygen atoms, which can more easily go react with your perfume. And I'm not saying that a singular oxygen atom is the only thing that can react with your perfume to oxidize it, it's just an increased chance. Not to mention, sunlight's energy can actually be transformed into heat because the sun is hot. Good job, Emma. Very informational. Well, heat increases the kinetic energy of your perfume molecules, means they're moving around more. So there's just an increased chance that they're going to collide with oxygen and cause an oxidation reaction. Heat in general, whether it's from sunlight or not, increases the rate of oxidation. Leaving your perfume out by a window is not going to make it go bad immediately. I have so many clear bottles of perfume just right next to the window, and I've had them for a long time and they're fine. It's just good practice to keep them out of the sunlight, but if you don't, it's not the end of the world, in my opinion. Okay, so that's sunlight and heat. What about humidity? There are a few reasons that humidity increases the rate of oxidation of your fragrance. Some compounds used in perfumery, such as esters, are more susceptible to hydrolysis, which is where water actually cleaves a bond in your perfume molecule. I mean, it could be any molecule, but in this context, we're talking about perfume. Sometimes the resulting compound from this hydrolysis is more susceptible to oxidation, and there's a million other contributing factors. Chemistry is very complicated. It kind of seems like every time I learn more, I feel like I know less. Anyway, back to what inspired this entire video. Should you store your fragrances in the fridge? Will I ever store my perfume in the fridge? No. First of all, I'd have to buy an entirely separate fridge because I'm not putting it with my food. And I'm also not fully convinced that it even works. I couldn't find any conclusive study as to whether putting your perfume in the fridge is actually beneficial. I did find that drastic temperature changes could cause condensation to form on the inside of your perfume bottle, and if that then dripped into the juice, that could alter the fragrance. I also saw some article mentioning cold shocking your perfume would hurt the molecules. I have no clue what that article meant. What does cold shocking your perfume mean? Like in chemistry terms. I don't know, sometimes I think that these brands and websites just spew random chemistry words and are like, yeah, they'll buy that. I also read that keeping fragrance near food odors might affect the scent. That's what I'm most worried about. I just think more needs to be done in terms of research. I personally will not be partaking in this trend unless there's overwhelming evidence that putting your perfume in the fridge is much better than anywhere else. I'm not kidding, let's do a 2-year-long study. Same perfume, same batch, one kept in the fridge, one kept in a dark, cool, dry cupboard, one kept in the bathroom, one kept by the window with lots of sunlight. And we do that for 30 different perfumes. So all we need is 120 perfume bottles. No, I'm just kidding. All right, let's move on to maceration. Big term. If you're in the perfume community, you've probably heard of the term maceration, and you probably know that it has something to do with making your perfume smell better. But what is maceration anyway? I mean, I've heard it used a ton of ways. One way I've heard it is that maceration is an extraction process to get the fragrant oils out of a raw material. Materials like leaves, for example, are soaked in a solvent over time. Sometimes that solvent is alcohol. I've also heard of fats being used. And then after sitting like this, they're filtered to just get the perfume oil. I've also heard maceration being referred to as the step in perfumery where the perfumer mixes all of the ingredients together and then lets it sit for a long time, maybe weeks or months. I guess the rationale behind this is that freshly made perfume doesn't smell all that great, it's not very well blended, you'll see a lot of just notes kind of sticking out, and then by letting it stick, you allow all of those ingredients to blend together, to dissolve, and to bind to that carrier alcohol. It's supposed to create a more blended scent. And then the people who decide on the product will basically pick which maceration time they think leads to the best fragrance. The third definition of maceration that I saw was literally just oxidation, the process of purposefully letting your perfume oxidize and develop a better, richer profile. We'll talk about that in a second. And then the fourth and likely the most common definition of maceration that I've heard is when you spray your perfume and then you lock it up in some cool, dark, dry space for weeks, months, whatever, so that it develops a richer scent profile. That's kind of just what I said about number 3. But number 3 was framed as wanting your perfume to oxidize. The number 4 definition is storing it away, and that would reduce the rate of oxidation. So I'm confused. If maceration is wanting your perfume to oxidize, wouldn't you then store it like by a window or in your bathroom? I'm really confused. Then there's maturation. So what some people will say is that maceration is that step in perfumery where once you've mixed everything together, you let it sit. And then maturation is when you store it away so that it develops a deeper profile. Generally, you'll hear maceration as used for the latter definition. The word has multiple meanings at this point. I'm not picky, use it however you want. But some people will purposely macerate their perfumes to make them smell better, especially vanillas. I've heard some people who insist on having the darkest possible version of any given vanilla perfume. I've actually seen TikToks of people comparing their multiple bottles of Kayali Vanilla 28 and seeing which one is the darkest. Supposedly it's ready when the juice is so dark and opaque that you can't see the Kayali logo through the back of the bottle. First of all, if you have multiple perfume bottles of the same perfume, it's okay. I know a lot of charities that would be happy to take that burden off of you. I'll write down my address. But this maceration craze really intrigues me. Why would the perfume do this? What's happening chemically that would cause this change in a vanilla perfume? Honestly, I couldn't find a lot of specifics. I saw a lot of claims that it does indeed happen, but no explanation. So I'm just gonna tell you my best guess, and don't take this as fact. This is just me hypothesizing in my head. So I found no evidence that suggests that vanilla, or more specifically the vanillin compound, undergoes any kind of chemical reaction to make it smell better. I mean, just like any molecule, vanillin is susceptible to oxidation, and what I've read is that oxidation actually just makes it smell less fragrant, which is kind of the opposite of what people are going for. So what I'm thinking is happening is a couple of things. One, your juice is getting darker due to oxidation. We know that, especially for vanilla, which requires a very low pH of 4.3 to not turn colors. Sometimes it'll even turn kind of purplish, which is a reaction with iron. But I don't think that the color necessarily is indicating a scent change too. That leads me to the second thing that I think is involved. 2, the top notes of your fragrance are just naturally evaporating faster than the base notes, like vanilla, and you're left with a profile that's skewed more towards your base notes. I have no idea if that's what's causing this. If someone knows for sure, please tell me. That's just my best guess based on what I've learned so far. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really like our little perfume chats. If you want to continue to learn more about the world of fragrance, consider liking and subscribing. Leave a comment letting me know what topics you want to learn about. I would probably be happy to make a video about it. All right, I'll see you later.